Okay, we've reached the end of the Meta Liberation Army series. This is the last one in this. This is going to be about the Meta Liberation Warriors. So these are all the different people, kind of the quote-unquote members slash civilians that we see in Dacus City, and also to a degree that we see during the Paranormal Liberation War arc, front arc, with, the hospital raid arc and everything that we see there. Um, when the League are originally talking to Redestro, when he is giving them this count of people that they have, their current army strength, the largely unknown comes up to 116,516 warriors that are spread throughout the country. And it's this whole concept of like they're all hidden warriors, hidden members in different places. I'm sure that also includes like the leaders of it, Curious and Trumpet and Skeptic and everything like that. And like probably a lot of the people that like are part of, like with Curious, like she had her Curious squad that we see her have in the story. And like a lot of them, she probably either like handpicked, or some of them might be like assistants or secretaries that she has that she uses to help with her writing or to help with her investigative things that she does, and like uses them and has them help with like the publishing company that she has or different things like that. So I don't know exactly if we see, like she has those ones, and then like Trumpet, like the Hearts and Minds party that he has, that he leads, he probably uses a lot of these members as like their other members that are from the Hearts and Minds party, or like maybe they were members of that first and then they became members of the Liberation Army, or vice versa. And like, so it's like, well, he's on our side, so we work with him as well, because he's working for the same things that we want. So, Venn diagram of overlapping things happen. And, Detronat probably has a fair amount of people that work at Detronat, probably also are members of the Meta Liberation Army. That just makes sense, because it's just like, oh, well, it's just our CEO that's this leader of the Liberation Army, but nobody else at Detronat works for them. I highly doubt that. I'm sure there's a fair amount of people, engineers, and even publicity people, and design people, and people that like test the different items that they make, or that help with designing them, as I said, for the designers, or that make the items themselves. Probably a lot of them are also members of the Meta Liberation Army. And Skeptic, there's probably not too many people that work with Skeptic, but I'm sure that like his Feel Good Inc. that he's like a board member of, like probably several of them, people that work there probably directly with him, are probably also people that are, members of the Liberation Army that then went to work for him there, or worked for him there, and then like he picked them and brought them into the army. One of the two, or they just found their way there anyway, one way or the other, and then like they're part of both. And so we see that with the different warriors. And what we see also is that when they get into Dacus City, a ton of these different warriors attack the League when they first get into Dacus City, after they're introduced to Curious and Trumpet. We get this moment where they have like their revival party that attacks them, and cause just pretty much they state, I think it's like Trumpet that says 90% of the people that live in Dacus City are like hidden warriors for the Meta Liberation Army. And as I stated in a different video, with that, it's 90% of the people that live there, probably that doesn't include like certain children that live there, and probably that doesn't include like maybe the very, very old, the very elderly that live there. Hopefully they at least had like the elderly and the children in like safe places for the time being, during the whole battle with the League and everything. Hopefully they had them in like safe places. But there's a fair amount that we see there with them, that a lot of these people have been like trained their whole lives, similar to the way that Getten was, trained in their quirks, or like, you know, they had their own quirks and like they eventually found their way into the Liberation Army, or like they were born into it, like their parents or their grandparents had been part of the original one back with Destro back in the beginning of that. And, you know, they just continued to stay, you know, within the family and stay within the Liberation Army or stay in contact with it. And they're like, oh, it's rising again. So yeah, we're going to be a part of this, you know, as it grows again. And as I said, like the different lieutenants possibly were like also, you know, descendants of other people that had been part of, you know, the Liberation Army back when, you know, Destro first founded it, you know, so many years ago. Um, and, you know, or like, you know, maybe they were descendants of people who, you know, whose children also went through horrible things, because of their quirks, or they themselves went through horrible things because of their quirk, and then they found their way into the Meta Liberation Army at times, or were brought into the fold, like sought out by people. Um, and, you know, so we did different things like that, um, when it comes to them. Kind of one of the main warriors that we see is uh, Tatsuyuki Tokoname. I apologize if I mispronounced his name, but he's a Slide and Go, who is a, well, when we meet him, he is a pro hero. And actually, the first time that we meet him in the anime is just after, and I think it's also like during the same time frame that we meet him in the manga anyway, that he's, we see him meet Shoto and Katsuki after they first get their licenses and like deal with the villains and such. He shows up and like hugs them, and like I'm sure Katsuki wants to blow him to pieces. Please do. He's not a good person. But like he's this, you know, member of the Liberation Army that has worked his way into being a hero. And I'm sure there's a few other members of the Liberation Army that have also worked their way into being heroes. And then like they're specifically placed in Deka City or specifically placed in other places to like gather information. So we see some of that. By technicality, Hawks does fall into this category because he is kind of, you know, undercover and trying to pretend to be this, you know, trying to pretend, you know, pretending to, you know, work his way into the Liberation Army and like pretends to be on their side and everything like that. And like, you know, Slide and Go is just like, you may be the number 2 hero, but, you know, within the rankings of the parent of the Meta Liberation Army / Paranormal Liberation Front, I'm technically higher ranked than you. You're like, you know, like you're like the busboy, and I'm like the head waiter or something like that. I'm like, that's not necessarily a good thing, you idiot. But so we get like that moment where it's just like he's like just like I'm higher ranked than you. So it's just like I may never get to be higher ranked than you in the official charts, but I'm higher ranked than you here. And like Hawks is just like, yeah, whatever. um, Hawks doesn't care for Slide. Slide Go's an idiot, in my opinion. But like Slide Go's like the one that like greets the League when they first arrive in Deka City and then takes them to where, you know, Curious and Trumpet are and everything. And he's not really a big thing, you know, big member of anything. Like he interacts with, you know, Shoto and Katsuki at one point just to like introduce him or whatever. And then it's just like, oh wait, he was a hero. Why is he here? And then blah 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 blah. And, you know, he's just like out patrolling at some point when everything happens with the Paranormal Liberation Front. But like he's arrested by Death Arms, so that's just funny. And he's arrested and like taken into custody and like stripped of his hero license and any accolades he had and everything like that, and just like set aside and just like, okay, no, you're going to jail. But no, you're going to jail. You were a bad person. Come with me. There might be some guys in jail that want to have a talk with you. But slight thing for Slide and Go, and I just kind of miss this, is he just kind of has like an unnamed sliding quirk that just allows him to like smoothly slide across surfaces without resistance and increasing his speed, which I'm just like, okay. Do you do anything else? Shouldn't you have just gone and like become like a pro skater or something like that? That might have been like a good thing for you to be as well. Influence the kids that way. But you know, so he does that. He's not really all that useful in my opinion. He's probably not like anywhere near a high ranked hero, but you know, that's what we have there. But like, one of the other things that we see happen with the Warriors is that, and I mentioned this in Curious's video, that she has her like Curious squad, and when they're fighting against Toga, they're the ones that are mainly fighting against her and like protecting Curious from Toga whenever she tries to attack. And Toga kills several of them by like stabbing them, and then of course when she via weird things activates Ochako's quirk when she is Ochako, and then levitates them and then zero gravities them and then drops them and kills them. She kills a bunch of them that way. But before that, we have this moment where Toga, has her syringes go out and like she's trying to drink the blood from several of them, and then the blood explodes and then they explode, and it's basically we hear Curious saying, oh well, basically all of these members are more than willing to give their lives for the cause, more than willing to give up their lives to, help further the cause of the Metal Liberation Army, to further things, to make things better down the road for like their children or whatever. They're willing to die for this. I turn them into living bombs and they don't care. They'll do whatever. Several of them, dozens of them were killed by Toya. Toya. Well, yes, Dabi killed several of them, but like several of them are killed by Shigaraki as well. When he just like disintegrates a ton of them together, at any given time while he's fighting, and twice, like did his sad man's parade all over the place and probably either killed and or incapacitated a bunch of them when he was doing that and everything. And the other thing is that when Getten at one point, when he's fighting against Dabi, and Getten has the same kind of, mentality of stuff, but he's like higher ranked and everything. But, when, I think I remember what happens is when, Dabi and, Getten are fighting at one point, and like Getten, activates his quirk and like turns a ton of the water around the city into ice to like try to deal with all of the Twice clones. It kills a ton of, it kills the Twice clones, but it also kills a bunch of the other members of the Metal Liberation Army. And Dabi's just like, you killed your own allies. And he's just like, they were willing to die for the cause anyway, so why should I mind? Getten is, raised to the point where, and I did not mention this in his video, but I should have. He's raised to the point where he has been trained and taught his entire life that, your quirk is where your value lies, that your quirk is what makes you valuable. And, he basically does this thing where he says, and I think I used it on the quote on the end of the Getten video, is that, when we, once we're on top of the world, once, people have been liberated, your quirk will determine where you stand, and that you can better your life by bettering your quirk. And, that's not the right way of doing things, obviously, but like a lot of these other members, all these other 100,000 some members, and like a bunch of them, die in this fight and then die in the fight against, the heroes and everything, and then are also, arrested for whatever ones don't die. A bunch of them are arrested because of the information that like Hawks has and such. So he's able to, they're able to arrest a bunch of them and everything. But, this, they were prepared to be like, oh, this world, once everything's, once everybody's free of their quirks, then we'll all just be able to, live as we want and use our quirks as we wish and everything like that. And like they probably used like the way that the Metal Liberation Army, probably explained it was like, it will be like Deka City. The world will be like Deka City, where like, oh, if you have a quirk that helps you cook, go ahead and use that. You have a quirk that helps you with, gardening or a whole bunch of other stuff, go ahead and use that as much as you want. Do that to the best of your abilities. You have this type of a quirk, go ahead and use it as much as you want. A bunch of those things. And, as I stated, and I think a different video, it's just like, I don't know if that means that, like, they're to the point where if the Metal Liberation Army were to the point where they're like, oh, go ahead and use your quirk as much as you want, even if it hurts other people, because if your quirk is stronger than them, then they're below you anyway. I don't know if they were to that level, if that was what they thought, and if it was, that's a very sad thing. Um, but I also don't know if it was, if they were like also raised or trained to the point where, you know, oh, we can use our quirks as we wish as long as we don't hurt people or as long as we don't hurt someone. Like as I stated, they wanted to use Toga as this like martyr type figure, this like saint type figure. Then they wanted to use her as like this, holy scripture story, and that's not a good thing. But because like her quirk, her instincts from her quirk were suppressed by society to the point where she had to have a mask, and you know, they don't want that to be the case for everybody. They don't want people to have to, hide away who they really are, hide away something that their quirk wants them to be. I can understand that to a degree, but I can also be like, that doesn't mean that you should allow some random girl to go around and start drinking people's blood just because that's something that her quirk is telling her to do. Maybe not. Maybe don't do that. Maybe find something that was just like, okay, ways that she can indulge in this quirk, but also make sure that she's supervised and is able to control it and not doing it for bad things, not doing bad things with said quirk. That might be a better way to handle this. Like also like, oh, Gethin can go around and like turn water molecules into ice. Depending on where he is, that's fine. But if he's like at like a swimming pool and he activates his quirk just because, oh, I feel like it, that's going to be a lot of people trapped in that swimming pool and or very badly hurt and or dead because he activated it. Same thing with a bunch of the other ones that we see, that have a whole bunch of different types of ranged quirks, which, part of it also is, the Meta Liberation Army wants it to be that people don't have to be like heroes just to use their quirk. So you don't have to have like a hero license to use your quirk, which, or like a hero license or like a certain medical license or like a police officer or a firefighter or something like that. You don't have to have like that type of a license in order to use your quirk. That like, Izuku's mom, like Inko, should be allowed to be able to like, oh, I just dropped something, I'm going to float it back up to me, or I'm going to help this person who, dropped something and float their object back to him. Or, different things like that, like small things to do with your quirk that aren't really hurting anybody. But, different levels of control of your quirk, or depending on what your quirk is, may be very dangerous to other people. So, the Meta Liberation Army has basically been trained their whole life to follow this mindset, or conditioned, or whatever you want to go with. So that's basically what I have in regards to the Warriors, and this should be the last one in this series. I don't think I have any other ones that are going to be in this. There might be something where like down the line, if we get any more additional information about the different members, I might throw that in somewhere, but at the moment I think that's all that I have for this one. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. If you have any other suggested series that might be good for me to do in regards to either My Hero or One Piece that you want to get my opinions on, let me know. So I thank you very much for watching. Just let me know in the comments, and thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. The hidden warriors of the Liberation Army have been training diligently every day, forging their bodies and souls, all for the sake of living as humans should.